What if the future was recorded long before we ever arrived, sealed inside ancient stone, star charts, and forgotten calendars? Across deserts, temples, and lost cities, time was measured with precision that still holds up today. The Mayans tracked vast cycles. Egyptian monuments aligned with the sky. Babylonian priests mapped planetary motion like a coded script. Centuries later, Nostradamus filled pages with cryptic quatrains that people still match to world events. But if these systems were only counting time, why do they keep pulling us back? If the past already contains the outline, then the question becomes simple. Are we reading it too late? What if the future has already been written in the past? Imagine, for a moment, that everything we have experienced and everything we will experience is already laid out before us, etched into the fabric of time. This thought, unsettling and fascinating in equal measure, has haunted the human mind for millennia. Throughout history, civilizations have looked to the heavens, to ancient prophecies, and to mysterious figures, searching for answers to the question that has always plagued us. What does the future hold? The whispers of these prophetic voices seem to echo from the deepest corners of human history, urging us to look back in order to understand what lies ahead. But as we delve into these ancient predictions, we find ourselves caught in a strange paradox. What if the prophecies we've clung to, the ones we thought would guide us, are as much about us, our search for meaning and understanding, as they are about the future itself? There are many prophecies that have captured the collective imagination, from the Mayan calendar, which predicted the end of the world in 2012, to the cryptic writings of Nostradamus, whose quatrains have been said to forecast everything from the rise of Adolf Hitler to the September 11th attacks. These ancient texts continue to fascinate. The very idea that someone, centuries, sometimes millennia before us, could have seen into our world, understood the course of events, and left a trail for us to follow is both awe-inspiring and deeply unsettling. But while these prophecies have shaped the way we perceive our place in the universe, they also bring with them a sense of mystery that refuses to be unraveled. In a world where science and reason increasingly dominate, how do we reconcile the existence of something as intangible as prophecy? Can ancient words really hold the key to our future? And if so, what are they trying to tell us? The Mayans were not just ancient astronomers. They were timekeepers, charting the movements of the stars with incredible precision. The Mayan calendar, with its intricate cycles and patterns, was far more than a way to measure days and years. It was a reflection of their worldview, which saw time as cyclical, endless, repeating, yet somehow always evolving. The calendar's most famous prediction, the one that sparked widespread panic around the year 2012, was rooted in the belief that time itself was an ever-turning wheel, and that each cycle marked a point of transition, a moment of renewal. Yet, when the predicted end of the world failed to arrive, we were left to wonder, was the prophecy simply misunderstood, or did we, as a species, miss something crucial in our interpretation of it? Perhaps the Mayans were not predicting an apocalyptic end, but a moment of change, something that, rather than destroying the world, would redefine it. In this light, the prophecy of 2012 becomes not a failed prediction, but a symbol of our struggle to understand the deeper currents of time, currents that we can feel, but not fully grasp. In the shadow of the Mayans, there is another name that stands out: Nostradamus. His prophecies, like the Mayan calendar, have had a profound impact on the way we view the future. Nostradamus wrote in quatrains, four-line verses that, in their cryptic language, seem to predict everything from the rise of Napoleon to the horrors of the Holocaust. Some even believe that Nostradamus foresaw the events of September 11th, 2001. But as we examine his words, we find ourselves confronted with a strange tension. On one hand, his predictions seem eerily accurate, sometimes too accurate for comfort. On the other hand, the language he used is so ambiguous, so open to interpretation, that it's easy to wonder whether his predictions were merely the product of coincidence and human ingenuity. Were these visions the result of a deeper understanding of time, or did Nostradamus simply tap into the collective fears and hopes of humanity? Is it possible that the prophecies of Nostradamus, like those of the Mayans, are not so much about predicting the future as they are about reflecting the anxieties and desires of the present. But the fascination with prophecies doesn't end with the ancient. Throughout history, there have been many figures, both real and mythical, who have claimed to see beyond the veil of time. The Oracle of Delphi, with her cryptic utterances, held a position of immense power in the ancient world, guiding kings and emperors. Yet, like the Mayans and Nostradamus, her words were often open to interpretation, subject to the biases and beliefs of those who heard them. The same is true for the countless prophecies that have shaped human history. Whether it was the rise of Christianity, the fall of Rome, or the discovery of the New World, prophecy has always played a role in how we understand the flow of time. But what if, in all our searching, we've missed the true purpose of prophecy? Could it be that these ancient voices weren't merely trying to predict the future, but to point us toward something deeper, a greater understanding of the mysteries of time itself? Consider the concept of time in ancient civilizations. To the Egyptians, time was not a straight line, but a cyclical force that moved in endless loops. The pharaohs, who ruled as living gods, believed that they were not just the rulers of their time, but of all time. Their power, they believed, extended beyond their own lifetimes, reaching back to the distant past and forward to the far future. This understanding of time as both infinite and cyclical shaped their religion, their politics, and even their architecture. The pyramids themselves, with their perfect alignments to the stars, were designed not just as tombs, but as gateways to the afterlife, a place where time would cease to exist. The ancient Egyptians were not simply obsessed with the past. They were obsessed with eternity, with the belief that time, though it may seem to pass, is forever present. In this sense, their prophecies were not warnings about specific events, but about the eternal nature of existence, a reminder that our understanding of time is always incomplete. The question, then, becomes, what are these prophecies truly telling us? Are they glimpses into the future, or reflections of our own deep-seated fears and desires? In a world that is constantly changing, it is easy to forget that time is both a force and a mystery, something that moves beyond our understanding. The prophecies that have survived throughout the ages, whether from the Mayans, Nostradamus, or the ancient Egyptians, are not just relics of a forgotten past. They are echoes of a deeper truth, one that we continue to struggle with today. We want to believe that we can predict the future, that we can control time. But the truth may be that time, like the prophecies themselves, is something that can only be understood in fragments, in glimpses, never fully grasped. And so, as we look to the future, we must ask ourselves, do these ancient voices still have something to teach us? Are their prophecies the remnants of a lost knowledge? Or are they simply the projections of a people trying to make sense of a world that, even now, remains beyond their control? The mysteries of time are not easily solved, and perhaps they were never meant to be. As we journey through the ages, we find ourselves drawn back to these ancient words, not because they offer us answers, but because they remind us that some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved, forever whispered on the winds of time. Time, for ancient civilizations, was not just a tool for measuring the passing of days or months. It was a living, breathing force, a vast and intricate web that connected every event, every action, and every moment. The early cultures that rose up from the dust of history saw time as something much deeper than we do today. For them, time wasn't linear, wasn't a straight line stretching from the past into the future. It was cyclical, endless, a repeating dance that ebbed and flowed like the tides of an eternal sea. This belief in cyclical time profoundly influenced their understanding of life, death, and even the cosmos itself. The ancient Egyptians, for instance, believed that time was the heartbeat of the universe, forever pulsing through every living thing, from the gods to the pharaohs to the stars in the sky. The Egyptians didn't see the world as a static, fixed place. They saw it as a realm in constant flux, where time itself could be both a destroyer and a creator. The Nile River, which flooded annually, was a perfect symbol of this cyclical view of time. Its regular, predictable flooding brought both destruction and renewal. In much the same way, the Egyptians saw their world, a place where order and chaos existed together in a delicate balance, both shaped and controlled by the cycles of time. The gods, they believed, lived outside of this cyclical time, existing in a state of eternal now, free from the limitations that bound humanity. Yet, the pharaohs, the living gods, were believed to have the power to influence the flow of time itself. They were seen not merely as rulers of the present, but as masters of all time, past, present, and future. Their reigns were thought to span across the ages, bridging the gap between the distant past and the far-flung future, their legacy echoing through the corridors of time. This belief that the ruler was not just a king, but a timekeeper in his own right found expression in the grandest monuments the ancient world ever produced, the pyramids. These towering structures, with their precise alignments to the stars and their almost otherworldly proportions, were not just tombs for the dead. They were designed as gateways to the afterlife, as physical manifestations of the timeless nature of the universe. The Egyptians believed that the soul of the pharaoh would ascend to the stars upon death, joining the gods in a realm where time itself had no meaning. The pyramids were not simply memorials. They were symbolic of the eternal cycle of life and death, a microcosm of the great cosmic wheel that turned above and below. They were designed to endure forever, outlasting the pharaohs they were built for and standing as silent witnesses to the passage of time, a reminder that the soul, like the pyramid, could transcend the limitations of the physical world. And then there were the Babylonians, an ancient civilization that also had a unique relationship with time. The Babylonians were among the first to develop an advanced system for tracking celestial events, charting the stars and planets with remarkable accuracy. They viewed time as a sacred force, one that could be read in the stars, and they were convinced that the future was written in the heavens. The Babylonians believed that the movements of the planets and stars were not mere coincidences, but divine messages, prophecies sent from the gods themselves. Their priests, known as the Chaldeans, were skilled in astrology and were often called upon to interpret the signs from the heavens, predicting everything from royal births to wars and natural disasters. The Babylonians saw time as a rhythm, a divine beat that they could tap into, using the stars as their guide. Each event in the world, they believed, was connected to a larger cosmic order, a cosmic plan that was mapped out in the heavens long before it ever reached the earth. Like the Egyptians, the Babylonians also believed in cycles, but their cycles were marked not just by the movements of the heavens, but also by the rise and fall of kings, the ebb and flow of empires. The Babylonians, like their Egyptian counterparts, had a cyclical view of history, where events seemed to repeat themselves in an endless loop. But unlike the Egyptians, whose time was intertwined with their religious beliefs, the Babylonians believed that time was something that could be controlled, at least to some extent. The rise of a new king or the overthrow of an old dynasty was, in their view, simply another cycle in the grand dance of history, a cycle that could be predicted and, in some cases, even influenced. The ancient Chinese, too, had a profound understanding of time, one that was closely tied to their understanding of the universe. Time, to the Chinese, was not a linear progression from one point to another, but rather a flow of interconnected moments, each one affecting the others in ways that were often invisible to the naked eye. They believed in the cyclical nature of time, seeing it as a harmonious flow of forces, yin and yang, the Tao, that shaped the world in ways that were both subtle and profound. Like the Egyptians and the Babylonians, the Chinese viewed time as a series of repeating cycles, but they also believed that within these cycles, there was room for change, for growth, and for transformation. In their philosophy, time was both fixed and fluid, an eternal dance of opposites that could never be fully understood, only experienced. Perhaps one of the most profound ways in which the ancients viewed time was through the lens of prophecy. Prophecies were not just seen as predictions about the future. They were seen as glimpses into the hidden layers of time itself. In many ancient cultures, prophecy was viewed as a way of tapping into the deeper currents of time, an ability to see beyond the veil of the present and into the vast expanse of the future. The Greek oracles, such as the Oracle of Delphi, were believed to be able to communicate with the gods and receive visions of the future. These prophecies were often cryptic, leaving those who heard them with a sense of mystery and awe. But the true power of prophecy, according to the ancients, was not in its ability to predict the future, but in its ability to reveal hidden truths about the nature of time itself. The Oracle of Delphi, for example, was consulted by kings, generals, and everyday people alike, all seeking guidance on matters both personal and political. The oracle's cryptic words often led to confusion and misinterpretation, yet they were seen as divinely inspired and were taken very seriously by those who heard them. But what was the true purpose of these prophecies? Were they simply glimpses into the future, or were they something more, something that revealed the deeper, unchanging truths of the universe, truths that could not be understood by the ordinary mind? In a way, the ancient civilization's view of time was both deeply spiritual and profoundly practical. They saw time not just as a means of organizing their daily lives, but as a force that could shape their destiny, influence their actions, and guide their decisions. Time, to them, was both a measure of the passing of events and a reflection of the eternal cycles that govern the universe. And in their prophecies, they saw not just the future, but the unseen forces of time that connected all things, the past, the present, and the future. They believed that by understanding these forces, they could gain insight into the nature of existence itself. And yet, despite their incredible wisdom, the ancients could not escape the ultimate mystery of time. They could observe its patterns, predict its cycles, and even interpret its signs, but they could never fully comprehend it. Time remained, as it does today, an enigma, an elusive force that slips through our fingers, just beyond our reach. The prophecies they left behind, like the stars they charted and the monuments they built, are reminders of our own inability to fully grasp the nature of time. They are whispers from a distant past, urging us to look deeper, to search for meaning in the endless cycles of existence. The Mayan calendar has always held a powerful, almost mystical place in the hearts and minds of people all around the world. Known for its complexity and its ability to chart not just days and months, but entire cycles of human history, it has captured the imagination of many who see in it a hidden key to understanding the true nature of time. Among its most famous aspects is its so-called end date, which many believe foretold the end of the world on December 21st, 2012. For years, this date became the focal point of global attention, igniting widespread fear, curiosity, and speculation. What made the Mayan calendar so compelling wasn't just its association with the idea of an apocalypse. It was the profound way in which it conceptualized time itself. The ancient Mayans didn't see time as a simple progression of moments moving forward. They saw it as an intricate, cyclical force, forever turning upon itself, with each cycle giving birth to a new world. To understand the power of this calendar, we must first delve into the mind of the ancient Mayans. They were master astronomers, mathematicians, and philosophers, and their understanding of time was far more sophisticated than most of their contemporaries. They didn't just measure time in terms of days and years, but in grand cycles that stretched across thousands, even millions of years. The most famous of these cycles was known as the long count, which measured time from a mythical creation date, said to be in the distant past. This system allowed the Mayans to track events in history across vast spans of time, from the creation of the world to the present moment, and, crucially, into the future. It was a calendar that reflected their belief in the cyclical nature of the universe, a universe in which time repeats itself in endless loops. In this system, December 21st, 2012, was the end of one such cycle, the 13th Bacton, a period lasting about 394 years. When this cycle reached its conclusion, many feared that it would signal the collapse of the world, an apocalyptic event in line with many ancient prophecies. But when December 21st came and went without incident, many were left puzzled and disappointed. What had gone wrong? Had the Mayans been mistaken, or had we misunderstood their calendar entirely? The failure of the 2012 prophecy didn't just raise questions about the Mayan calendar itself. It forced us to confront deeper questions about time, destiny, and the nature of prophecy. One possibility is that we misinterpreted the significance of the Mayan end date. The concept of an end, in the Mayan worldview may not have been as literal as we once thought. Rather than predicting a catastrophic event, the Mayans may have been pointing to the end of cycle, an end that would usher in a new beginning. This was not an apocalyptic end, but a symbolic transition, a moment of renewal where the world as we know it could undergo a transformation. If we look at the history of the Mayans, we see a culture that was deeply attuned to the rhythms of the earth, the sky, and the cosmos. For them, everything, life, death, and rebirth, was part of a larger, ongoing cycle, one that could not be understood in simple terms of beginning and end. In their eyes, the end of one cycle was simply the precursor to the start of another, a renewal of time itself. This interpretation of the Mayan calendar suggests that 2012 was not a failure, but a moment of transition, a point at which humanity was meant to awaken to the cyclical nature of existence. The calendar, with its intricate patterns and long spans of time, was less concerned with predicting the end of the world and more focused on encouraging us to understand our place in the ever-turning wheel of time. But if the Mayans didn't foresee a literal apocalypse, why did so many people believe in it? The answer lies in the deep, almost primal fear that humans have always had about the unknown, about the inevitable end of things. In times of uncertainty, we turn to prophecies, ancient or modern, to help us make sense of the world around us, to give us a sense of control over the uncontrollable. The Mayan calendar was not the only prophecy to make headlines in recent years. Other ancient predictions, such as those of Nostradamus, also continue to stir our imaginations. Nostradamus, a 16th-century French astrologer and seer, is famous for his cryptic quatrains, which are said to predict everything from the rise of Napoleon to the attacks of September 11th. His writings, like those of the Mayans, are shrouded in mystery, filled with vague, often contradictory imagery that leaves room for endless interpretation. His quatrains are so cryptic that, with the benefit of hindsight, it's possible to interpret them as foretelling almost any major event in history. Much like the Mayan calendar, Nostradamus' prophecies seem to be riddled with ambiguity, leaving us with more questions than answers. Some scholars dismiss his predictions as mere coincidences, while others argue that Nostradamus possessed a rare gift, one that allowed him to glimpse into the future. But if Nostradamus did have such a gift, what was the source of his visions? Was it simply his mastery of astrology and his knowledge of the events of his time? Or did he tap into a deeper, more mysterious understanding of time itself? In some ways, Nostradamus' quatrains mirror the very nature of time. They are fragmented, elusive, and difficult to pin down, just like time itself. They suggest that time, far from being a linear progression, is a vast, swirling ocean of possibilities, where the past, present, and future are intertwined in ways we cannot fully comprehend. This idea of time as a complex, cyclical force is echoed in many other ancient prophecies. Whether it's the prophecies of the ancient Greeks, the Hebrew Bible, or the Oracle of Delphi, there's a common thread running through them all: the belief that time is not just something we experience, but something that governs us, that shapes our fates and our destinies. These prophecies are not just about predicting the future. They are about understanding the deeper structure of time itself, the invisible threads that connect every moment, every event, and every life. The question, then, is not whether these prophecies are accurate, but whether they reveal something more profound about the nature of existence. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of these ancient prophecies is the sense that they are not just predictions of things to come, but reflections of our own fears, hopes, and desires. In the case of the Mayans, their calendar was not simply a tool for measuring time. It was a map of the human condition, a reflection of our constant struggle to understand our place in the universe. The Mayans, like many other ancient civilizations, saw time as a force that could shape their destinies, but also as something that could be influenced and controlled. Their prophecies were not just about foretelling the future. They were about creating it, about guiding their people toward a deeper understanding of themselves and the universe. In the end, the failure of the 2012 prophecy may not be a failure at all. It may be that the prophecy was never meant to be taken literally, but was instead a symbol of something much larger. The Mayans, like the Greeks, the Hebrews, and the Egyptians, were not just predicting the future. They were attempting to understand the very nature of time itself. In this sense, the true significance of the Mayan calendar lies not in its ability to predict the end of the world, but in its power to awaken us to the mysterious, cyclical nature of time. For in that mystery lies the key to understanding not just the past, but the future, and perhaps, in some ways, even our place within it. The shadow of Nostradamus looms large over the history of prophecy. His name, synonymous with mystery, is one that continues to captivate and intrigue people centuries after his death. Michel de Nostradame, better known by his Latinized name Nostradamus, was a French astrologer, physician, and reputed seer who lived during the 16th century. His writings, particularly his Centuries, a collection of 942 cryptic quatrains, are believed to have predicted many major historical events, from the rise of Napoleon to the terror of World War II, and even the tragic events of September 11, 2001. Yet, for all the attention his prophecies continue to receive, the question remains, did Nostradamus possess some divine foresight, or was he merely a master of ambiguity, crafting visions that could be interpreted in 1,000 different ways? His quatrains, often shrouded in symbolism and mysticism, have sparked countless interpretations, each more varied than the last. In many ways, Nostradamus' prophecies embody the very essence of the unknown. They remain elusive, paradoxical, and open to countless readings, none of which can ever be proven definitively wrong or right. Nostradamus' predictions are rooted in his belief that the world operates in cycles, much like the ancient Mayans. However, his worldview was much more influenced by the astrological and spiritual ideas of his time, particularly the belief in the Great Year, an astrological cycle that spans approximately 25,800 years. He believed that through understanding the stars and celestial patterns, one could foresee the unfolding of future events. Unlike the Mayans, who primarily focused on time in a linear, cyclical sense, Nostradamus saw history as being influenced by both celestial cycles and the patterns of human behavior. His method of prophecy, however, was distinctly cryptic. He used a combination of classical mythology, astrology, and biblical references to craft his predictions, drawing from a vast pool of symbols, metaphors, and hidden meanings. This method made his work both elusive and compelling, a source of constant fascination and, perhaps, confusion. It is this very ambiguity that makes Nostradamus so difficult to pin down. His followers, and indeed many skeptics, have been drawn to the way in which his quatrains seem to align with key historical events. The rise of Hitler, the fall of the Twin Towers, and countless other moments in history have all been linked to Nostradamus' writings, and each connection appears to support the idea that he had a gift for seeing into the future. But what if this connection is a result of nothing more than our own need to find meaning in the chaos of history? If we take a closer look at his prophecies, we see that their meanings are not fixed, but flexible, allowing for a wide range of interpretations. This raises an intriguing question. Do these prophecies truly reflect a glimpse into the future, or are they simply a mirror reflecting our own hopes, fears, and interpretations? Many of the prophecies attributed to Nostradamus are vague enough that they can be twisted to fit any number of historical events. For example, his famous quatrain, "The blood of the just will be demanded of London / burnt by fire in the year 66 / the ancient lady will fall from her high place / and many of the same sect will be killed," is often cited as a prediction of the Great Fire of London in 1666. But the wording is so open-ended that it could just as easily be seen as a metaphor for any number of major disasters throughout history. This quality of Nostradamus' quatrains, its openness to multiple interpretations, has led to the widespread belief that his prophecies can apply to virtually any time period, to any crisis, or to any political upheaval. This flexibility is both the strength and the weakness of his work. It makes his predictions compelling because they seem to resonate with so many events, but it also undermines the idea that Nostradamus was actually seeing the future. Instead, it suggests that we are simply projecting our own fears and desires on his words, seeing in them what we want to see, rather than what he may have actually predicted. Despite this, Many people remain convinced that Nostradamus had an extraordinary gift, a rare ability to peer into the future. This belief is reinforced by the sheer number of events that appear to align with his writings. For example, some argue that his quatrain, "From the sky will come a great king of terror / to bring back to life the great king of Engalmois / before and after Mars to reign by good luck," refers to the rise of Adolf Hitler. The great king of terror is interpreted as Hitler, while Engalmois is believed to refer to the Mongols, who were once thought to be invincible. The connection between Nostradamus' words and the events of the Second World War is compelling to some, particularly when you consider the widespread fear and terror that Hitler's rise brought to Europe. Yet, much like the other interpretations, this reading relies on a highly flexible interpretation of Nostradamus' cryptic language. The phrase "Great King of Terror" could just as easily refer to any number of historical figures, and the phrase "Mars to reign by good luck" could be applied to the rise of any powerful leader, not just Hitler. This raises another important question. Did Nostradamus' prophecies truly predict the future, or did they simply reflect the political and social anxieties of his time? Nostradamus lived in a period of great turmoil, where war, plague, and political unrest were constant threats. The idea that he could predict future events may be less about his ability to see into the future and more about his ability to tap into the collective fears and concerns of his society. His prophecies, then, might not be predictions of specific events, but reflections of the universal human condition, the desire to understand the unknown, to make sense of the chaos of life, and to find meaning in the midst of suffering. By reading Nostradamus' quatrains through this lens, we begin to see them not as a series of prophecies about the future, but as timeless reflections on the nature of existence, fate, and human suffering. The idea that Nostradamus' prophecies are not merely predictions, but reflections of the human psyche, brings us back to the question of time itself. If Nostradamus' writings are reflections of our own desires and fears, what does that say about the nature of time? Could it be that time, like his prophecies, is not a straight line, but a mirror, constantly reflecting our hopes, dreams, and anxieties? If time is cyclical, as the Mayans believed, then perhaps Nostradamus' quatrains are not glimpses into the future, but echoes of the past, reverberating through the corridors of history. In this sense, his prophecies may not be about predicting specific events, but about illuminating the eternal patterns of human experience, patterns that repeat, time and again, throughout the ages. In the end, the mystery of Nostradamus' prophecies is not just about their accuracy, but about their enduring power to fascinate and provoke. Whether or not Nostradamus truly had the ability to see into the future, his words continue to resonate with us today, speaking to our deepest fears and desires, and forcing us to confront the unknown. His quatrains remain a testament to the timeless human quest to understand the nature of time, to unravel its mysteries, and to find meaning in the vast, swirling currents of history. Like the Mayan calendar, Nostradamus' prophecies may not offer us clear answers, but they challenge us to look deeper into the fabric of time itself, to explore the hidden forces that shape our world, and to ask, what is the true nature of the future, and what role do we play in it? Across the centuries, there has been a continual fascination with the mysterious power of prophecy, especially when it seems to reach across vast stretches of time. Perhaps no figure better exemplifies this intrigue than the Oracle of Delphi, one of the most famous and revered oracles in ancient history. Nestled in the rugged mountains of Greece, Delphi was considered the center of the world by the ancient Greeks. It was here, at the Temple of Apollo, that the Pythia, the high priestess of Apollo, would deliver her enigmatic prophecies. The oracle's pronouncements, though cryptic and often open to interpretation, guided some of the most important decisions in Greek history, influencing kings, generals, and ordinary citizens alike. The power of the oracle was not simply in the words spoken, but in the atmosphere of reverence and awe that surrounded her. Those who sought her wisdom believed that they were not just hearing the words of a human prophet, but the divine will of the gods themselves. Yet, as with many prophecies, the nature of the oracle's gift remains a mystery. The process by which the oracle delivered her prophecies has been the subject of much speculation. Ancient texts suggest that the Pythia would enter a trance-like state, inhaling the vapors that rose from a fissure in the earth beneath the temple. These fumes, some believe, may have induced a hallucinatory state that allowed the Pythia to communicate with the divine. It is possible that the oracle's visions were the result of natural gas emissions from the earth, but even today, there is debate over the exact nature of the substance that may have caused the trance-like states. The ancient Greeks, however, saw this as a direct connection to Apollo, the god of prophecy, who they believed spoke through the Pythia. These oracular words, shrouded in mystery and symbolism, became one of the most powerful and enduring aspects of Greek religion. Yet, the true meaning behind the Pythia's words was rarely clear, and those who sought guidance often had to turn to priests and scholars to interpret the cryptic pronouncements. What makes the Oracle of Delphi so fascinating is not just the influence it wielded, but also the ambiguity of the prophecies themselves. These oracles were famously difficult to understand, often delivered in riddles that left much room for interpretation. For example, the famous prophecy given to King Croesus of Lydia, who sought to know whether he should go to war with Persia, was famously unclear. The oracle told him that if he went to war, he would destroy a great empire. Croesus, eager for victory, took this as a sign that he would defeat the Persians, only to find that it was his own empire that would be destroyed. This famous incident highlights one of the most intriguing aspects of prophecy, its inherent ambiguity. The prophecy wasn't wrong, but it was open to interpretation, and the consequences of that interpretation were dire. It serves as a reminder that the future, as revealed through prophecy, is not always straightforward and can be shaped as much by human choices and perceptions as by divine will. In many ways, the oracle's cryptic nature reflects a deeper truth about prophecy itself. The future is never a simple, linear progression of events. It is a tapestry woven from countless threads, each shaped by countless decisions, influences, and possibilities. Prophecies, then, may not be fixed and inevitable predictions of the future, but rather glimpses into a future that is still malleable and influenced by human action. The words of the Oracle of Delphi, like those of Nostradamus or the Mayan calendar, serve not just as predictions, but as reflections of the complexity and uncertainty that define the human experience. The ambiguity of these prophecies mirrors our own uncertainty about the future. They invite us to question the very nature of time, fate, and free will. If prophecies are open to interpretation, then perhaps the future is as well. Perhaps it is not a destination to be reached, but a path to be shaped by our own choices. In this sense, the Oracle of Delphi's prophecies were not merely glimpses into a preordained future, but invitations to engage with the unknown, to navigate the shifting currents of fate with wisdom and discernment. The famous maxim, "Know thyself," inscribed at the entrance to the Temple of Apollo, speaks to this idea. The oracle was not simply offering answers to the questions posed by those who sought her guidance. She was also urging them to look inward, to examine their own hearts and minds, and to understand their place in the grand tapestry of existence. Prophecy, as the oracle demonstrated, is not just about knowing the future. It is about understanding the present and recognizing that we are active participants in shaping what is to come. The ambiguity of the oracle's prophecies is also a reflection of the broader human desire to make sense of an uncertain and often chaotic world. In times of great crisis or uncertainty, people have always turned to prophecy as a way of finding meaning and direction. From the ancient Greeks to modern times, we continue to seek out predictions of the future, hoping that they will offer us some insight into what lies ahead. But as the oracle's words remind us, prophecy is not always clear-cut. It does not offer definitive answers, but rather invites us to explore the multiple possibilities that the future holds. It is as much about the journey of understanding as it is about the destination. Moreover, the Oracle of Delphi's influence extended far beyond the boundaries of the ancient Greek world. Her prophecies were sought by people from all corners of the ancient Mediterranean, including the Romans, who continued to consult the oracle long after the Greeks had disappeared. The oracle's reputation as a divine source of wisdom was so widespread that it became an integral part of the Roman religious and political landscape. This suggests that the power of prophecy was not simply a regional phenomenon, but something that transcended cultures and time periods. The Oracle of Delphi's messages, though shrouded in mystery, resonated with people from different backgrounds and beliefs, suggesting that the search for meaning and understanding, especially in relation to time and the future, is a universal human impulse. Even in the modern world, the legacy of the Oracle of Delphi continues to endure. While we no longer consult oracles or seek out divine messages from the gods, the desire for insight into the future remains as strong as ever. The rise of modern-day psychics, astrologers, and even futurists reflects a deep-seated need to understand the future and to gain control over the uncertainties that lie ahead. In many ways, this search for answers mirrors the ancient longing for prophecy. The Oracle of Delphi, with her enigmatic words and mysterious presence, was a figure who transcended the boundaries of time and place. Her influence stretched far beyond her own era, and her legacy continues to shape the way we think about the future today. Yet, while we may not turn to oracles for guidance in the same way the ancient Greeks did, the underlying question remains the same. Can we ever truly know the future? The answer, perhaps, is not so much in seeking out answers from mystical oracles or ancient texts, but in coming to terms with the uncertainty and complexity of the future itself. The Oracle of Delphi, in all her cryptic wisdom, reminds us that prophecy is not about predicting a fixed, unchangeable future, but about understanding the infinite possibilities that lie before us and learning to navigate them with grace and wisdom. Perhaps, in the end, prophecy is less about foreseeing the future and more about accepting the mystery of time and embracing the unknown. The oracle's enduring influence is a testament to humanity's eternal quest to make sense of time, to understand our place in the grand design, and to find meaning in the endless ebb and flow of existence. As we venture further into the realm of prophecy and its relationship with time, we begin to encounter a deeply philosophical question that transcends ancient cultures and texts. Is prophecy merely a way to glimpse into the future, or is it a reflection of the eternal cycles of human consciousness, an attempt to understand not just the future, but the present moment and the unseen forces that shape our lives? While ancient prophecies like those of Nostradamus, the Mayans, and the Oracle of Delphi seem to speak of future events, they also serve as mirrors to the human condition, reflecting our fears, desires, and the uncertainties of the world around us. The more we study these prophetic texts, the more we realize that their true power lies not in their ability to predict the future, but in their ability to reveal profound truths about ourselves, our place in the universe, and the very nature of time. At the core of this mystery is the idea that time itself may be cyclical. The notion that history repeats itself, that events unfold in patterns that echo the past, is not a new one. From ancient Greeks, who believed in the eternal recurrence of the cosmos, to modern-day theorists who explore the concept of multiverses and parallel realities, the idea that time is not a linear progression, but rather a series of repeating cycles, is a concept that has fascinated thinkers for centuries. This cyclical view of time is particularly evident in the way that many ancient cultures understood the progression of human history. The Mayans, for example, believed that time moved in great, recurring cycles, with each cycle marked by a significant event or transformation. These cycles were not merely a reflection of physical time, but of the larger spiritual forces that govern the universe. For the Mayans, time was not something that simply passed, but something that was constantly reborn, evolving, and transforming. This view of time as cyclical was shared by many other ancient civilizations. The Egyptians, for instance, believed in the eternal recurrence of life and death, with each life following a predetermined pattern, only to be reborn in the next cycle. The Egyptians also viewed time as a divine force that was intricately woven into the fabric of their existence, shaping everything from their daily rituals to their grandest architectural achievements. The cyclical nature of time was embedded in their culture, reflected in the design of their pyramids, the movements of the stars, and the cycles of the Nile River, which would flood and recede, bringing both destruction and renewal. This was not simply a physical process, but a reflection of the spiritual nature of time itself, a cycle of death and rebirth, of creation and destruction, that played out not only in the natural world, but also in the lives of individuals. The concept of cyclical time raises an important question. What role do we, as human beings, play in these cycles? If time is not linear, but instead a recurring loop, does that mean that history is fated to repeat itself? Are we simply caught in an endless cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth, with little ability to break free? Or is there room for human agency, for change and transformation within these cycles? The answer, perhaps, lies in the ancient prophecies themselves. While many of these prophecies seem to speak of inevitable events, catastrophes, wars, and upheavals, they also hint at the possibility of human transformation. The Mayan calendar, for example, with its emphasis on the end of one cycle and the beginning of another, suggests that time itself is not static, but in constant flux. The end of a cycle does not signify the end of the world, but rather the opportunity for something new to emerge. Similarly, the prophecies of Nostradamus, with their cryptic references to great kings, wars, and the rise of new powers, hint at the possibility of change within the cycles of time. Nostradamus' quatrains, while often vague and open to interpretation, seem to suggest that human actions can influence the course of events, shaping the future in ways that are both unpredictable and inevitable. This idea is echoed in the writings of many other ancient seers and prophets, who believe that while time may move in cycles, there is always the possibility for new developments, for unexpected twists and turns in the fabric of history. The question, then, is not whether history will repeat itself, but how we, as individuals and as a collective, choose to participate in these cycles. This brings us to the concept of free will and its relationship to prophecy. If time is cyclical, and if the future is not set in stone, then it stands to reason that we, as human beings, have some measure of influence over the events that unfold. Prophecies, then, may not be so much predictions of an unchangeable future, but warnings or invitations to act. They are not fixed events, but rather signposts along the way, pointing us toward possible futures that we can choose to embrace or avoid. The idea that prophecy is not about predicting a fixed future, but about illuminating the potentialities of the future, is a powerful one. It suggests that prophecy is not a force that controls us, but a tool that helps us navigate the uncertain waters of time, guiding us as we move forward into the unknown. In this sense, prophecies are both a reflection of the cyclical nature of time and a call to action. They serve as reminders that time is not something that happens to us, but something we shape through our choices and actions. The future is not a predetermined destiny, but a series of possibilities that are shaped by the present moment. This view of prophecy and time challenges the traditional notion that the future is fixed and inevitable. It invites us to reconsider our relationship with time and to recognize that we are not passive observers, but active participants in the unfolding of our own story. We are, in essence, co-creators of the future, not simply subjects to its dictates. The idea of free will within the context of prophecy and cyclical time is a deeply empowering one. It suggests that we have the ability to break free from the patterns of the past, to step outside the cycles of repetition, and create something new. This is the true power of prophecy, not in its ability to predict the future, but in its ability to inspire us to take control of our own destinies. The ancient prophecies, with their mysterious words and cryptic symbols, are not just glimpses into a fixed future, but calls to action, reminders that the future is not something that happens to us, but something we can shape with our choices. Perhaps the greatest lesson that prophecy offers us is that time is not just a sequence of events, but a living force that we can engage with, understand, and ultimately transform. It is not something that we are helplessly swept along by, but something we can influence and mold. Just as the Mayans believed that time is cyclical and that each new cycle brings the possibility of transformation, we too have the opportunity to break free from the past and create something new. The future is not set in stone. It is a vast, open field of possibilities, waiting to be shaped by our actions, our intentions, and our will. Prophecy, then, is not just a tool for understanding the future, but a guide for creating it. It is an invitation to engage with the mystery of time and to participate in the grand unfolding of existence. The true power of prophecy lies not in its ability to predict the future, but in its ability to inspire us to live in harmony with the eternal cycles of time, to shape our destinies, and to create a future that reflects the best of who we are. The notion of a timeless truth has always fascinated humanity. Throughout history, across all cultures, there have been countless examples of ancient teachings, prophecies, and beliefs that have endured for centuries. These ancient voices, which echo through the corridors of time, often carry with them a sense of mystery and wisdom that transcends the boundaries of their era. One such example is the ancient Sumerian texts, which hold a crucial place in the story of human civilization. Long before the Greeks, Egyptians, or Romans, the Sumerians inhabited the fertile crescent of Mesopotamia in what is now modern-day Iraq. Their civilization, often regarded as one of the cradles of human culture, gave birth to many of the ideas that would shape the course of history. But it is their mythology, their complex pantheon of gods and goddesses, and the ancient texts that tell of their origins that still intrigue us today. Within these texts are not just stories, but profound insights into the nature of time, destiny, and the forces that shape the world around us. The Sumerians believed that the gods themselves were intimately connected with the flow of time. Time, for them, was not merely a linear progression of days and years, but a cyclical force that governed both the divine and the mortal realms. This belief was reflected in their creation myths, particularly the epic tale of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest surviving works of literature. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the protagonist, Gilgamesh, embarks on a journey of self-discovery, seeking immortality in a world where death is inevitable. His quest is a reflection of humanity's timeless struggle with the concept of mortality, and it reveals the Sumerian view of time as something both powerful and relentless. Gilgamesh's journey leads him to the gods, and in the end, he learns that immortality is not a gift that can be granted by the gods, but something that must be earned through wisdom and understanding. The gods, in the Sumerian worldview, were timeless beings, but even they were subject to the forces of time, and their actions shaped the very fabric of existence. What makes the Epic of Gilgamesh so compelling, even today, is the way it explores the intersection between the divine and the human, and the role that time plays in shaping both realms. Time, for the Sumerians, was not just a mechanical process that ticked away in the background of life. It was a force that was deeply intertwined with the destiny of both gods and humans. In the epic, Gilgamesh's struggle to overcome death reflects humanity's eternal search for meaning in a world where everything is impermanent. The gods, too, are caught in the web of time, acting in ways that reflect their own struggles with the passage of days and the inevitable approach of death. This theme, the inevitability of time and the consequences it brings, resonates with people across cultures and ages. The Sumerians, through their myths and their beliefs, captured the very essence of what it means to be human, to live within the constraints of time, to seek answers to questions that may never be fully understood, and to wrestle with the forces that shape our lives. The idea that time is a force that governs both the divine and the mortal realms is not unique to the Sumerians. In fact, many ancient cultures shared this view, albeit in different forms. The ancient Egyptians, for example, believed that the gods were not just timeless beings, but that they existed outside of time itself. Time, in their worldview, was something that flowed in cycles, and the gods were the eternal keepers of these cycles. Their creation myths, as well as their understanding of the afterlife, were deeply tied to the idea that time was both cyclical and eternal. In the Egyptian creation myth, the world was born out of chaos, and from that chaos, order was established. The gods were seen as the agents of this order, bringing structure to the chaos of the cosmos. The Egyptians' view of time, much like the Sumerians, was not one of linear progression, but of constant renewal and rebirth. Death was not seen as the end of time, but as a transition to another phase in the eternal cycle. The concept of time as a cyclical force is also reflected in the Egyptian idea of Ma'at, the principle of cosmic order. Ma'at was the divine force that kept the universe in balance, ensuring that the cycles of time, the movements of the stars, and the seasons of life all unfolded according to a divine plan. The pharaohs, as earthly representatives of the gods, were tasked with maintaining Ma'at on earth, ensuring that the cosmic order was upheld in the mortal realm. This belief in the cyclical nature of time and the interconnectedness of all things permeated every aspect of Egyptian society, from their religious rituals to their architectural feats. The pyramids, perhaps the most iconic symbols of ancient Egypt, were designed to align with the stars and to last for eternity, symbolizing the eternal nature of time and the God's influence over it. In the context of prophecy, this understanding of time as a cyclical force takes on profound significance. If time is not a linear progression, but a repeating cycle, then prophecy is not simply about predicting future events, but about understanding the patterns that govern these cycles. Prophecies, whether delivered by the Oracle of Delphi, Nostradamus, or the Mayan calendar, are not merely glimpses into what is to come, but reflections of the larger cosmic rhythms that shape the world. These prophecies, much like the myths of the Sumerians and Egyptians, remind us that we are not merely passive observers of time, but active participants in its unfolding. We are, in essence, co-creators of our own destinies, shaping the future through the choices we make in the present. This idea that we are participants in the unfolding of time, rather than mere subjects of its passage, has profound implications for how we view our lives and our place in the universe. If time is cyclical, then the events of the past are not gone forever, but are destined to return in some form or another. History, in this view, is not a straight line that stretches from the past into the future, but a wheel that turns, bringing events and experiences back again. This cyclical view of time invites us to think of history not as a series of disconnected events, but as a continuous process, where the past informs the present and shapes the future. It is a reminder that the actions we take today are not just isolated incidents, but part of a larger, ongoing story. This cyclical view of time is also reflected in the way that many ancient prophecies are structured. They do not simply predict one singular event, but instead point to larger patterns that unfold over time. The Mayan calendar, for example, is built upon the understanding that time moves in cycles, with each cycle representing a different phase of human history. The end of one cycle is not the end of time, but the beginning of another. Similarly, Nostradamus quatrains, while often focused on specific events, are also filled with recurring themes and patterns that speak to the cyclical nature of history. Prophecies, in this sense, are not about predicting the future with certainty, but about revealing the underlying rhythms of time that shape our world. They are a way of understanding the past, the present, and the future as part of an ongoing process, a cycle that continues to unfold with each passing moment. This cyclical view of time also offers a profound insight into the nature of human existence. If time is cyclical, then our lives are not merely brief moments in an endless expanse of time. Instead, we are part of a much larger cosmic rhythm, one that connects us to the past, the present, and the future. Our actions, choices, and decisions are not just fleeting events, but part of a larger, ongoing process that stretches across generations. This understanding of time as cyclical invites us to view our lives not as isolated incidents, but as part of a larger, interconnected web of existence. It challenges us to think about our place in the universe, to recognize that the choices we make today will echo through the cycles of time, influencing future generations and shaping the course of history. The mystery of time, then, is not just about the future. It is about understanding the deeper forces that govern the past and the present. Prophecies, myths, and ancient texts are not just about predicting what is to come. They are about helping us navigate the complexities of time and understand our role in the grand, unfolding story of existence. Time, in this sense, is not something we're merely subject to, but something we actively participate in, shaping through our thoughts, actions, and decisions. It is a reminder that we are not isolated beings moving through a linear timeline, but part of a much larger, cyclical pattern that connects us to the past, the present, and the future. And in this pattern, There is both mystery and power, a power that we can harness as we seek to understand the timeless truths that shape our world. As we delve deeper into the world of prophecy, one of the most fascinating aspects that arises is the role of ancient civilizations in shaping our understanding of time, fate, and the unfolding of human history. The concept of an impending transformation or cataclysm has pervaded the ancient prophecies of civilizations as varied as the Egyptians, the Maya, and the Chinese. Each of these cultures, at the height of their power, foresaw the arrival of a great shift in the natural order, an event that would mark the end of one era and the beginning of another. The Mayan calendar, one of the most famous and enigmatic of these prophecies, has captured the imagination of people across the globe. Although the calendar gained widespread attention around the year 2012, when some believe that it predicted the end of the world, the true nature of its predictions remains largely misunderstood. The Mayans, far from predicting the end of the world, believe in the cyclical nature of time, in which the end of one cycle would simply give way to the beginning of another. Their calendar was a reflection of the deep interconnection between time, the cosmos, and the earth, a reminder that all things are born, live, die, and then are reborn in a continuous, ever-turning wheel. The Mayans were not the only civilization to foresee the cyclical nature of time. In ancient China, the concept of cycles also played a central role in their understanding of the universe. Chinese philosophy, particularly through the lens of Taoism and Confucianism, embraced the idea of time as a continuous flow of changing seasons, rising and falling dynasties, and the eternal dance of the elements. The Chinese view of time was shaped by the idea of the Tao, the underlying principle that governs the universe. Time was seen as an ever-flowing river, a force that shaped all aspects of life, but one that must be navigated with patience, understanding, and harmony. The cyclical view of time in ancient China also embraced the concept of reincarnation, not only for individuals, but for entire civilizations. The idea that dynasties would rise and fall, that empires would experience cycles of prosperity and decline, was deeply embedded in the Chinese worldview. In this context, prophecy was not just about predicting individual events, but about understanding the cyclical ebb and flow of time, the natural rise and fall of power, and the larger cosmic rhythms that governed all existence. The ancient Egyptians, too, had a profound understanding of the cyclical nature of time. For them, time was intricately tied to the movements of the stars, the cycles of the Nile, and the rhythms of the natural world. The Egyptians believed that time was both cyclical and eternal, a divine force that was governed by the gods. The myth of Osiris, one of their central religious stories, reflects this view. Osiris, the god of life, death, and rebirth, was associated with the cycles of the Nile River. His death and resurrection symbolized the eternal cycle of life, and his reign as the ruler of the afterlife embodied the idea that time was both circular and infinite. The Egyptians' understanding of time was deeply connected to their religious practices, with their elaborate rituals designed to ensure the smooth passage of time, both in the earthly realm and the afterlife. This cyclical nature of time was also reflected in their architecture, particularly in the design of the pyramids, which were built to last for eternity and align with the stars. The Egyptians believed that by understanding the cosmic cycles and aligning their lives with these rhythms, they could achieve immortality and transcend the limitations of earthly time. While the Egyptians, Chinese, and Mayans all embraced a cyclical view of time, it is in the realm of prophecy that these ancient beliefs become particularly intriguing. Prophecy, in many ways, serves as a bridge between the cyclical nature of time and the human desire to understand the future. The prophecies of these civilizations, with their cryptic symbols and enigmatic visions, reflect the belief that time is not merely a linear progression of events, but a dynamic and unfolding process, shaped by forces beyond human comprehension. These ancient prophecies, whether recorded in the form of oracles, sacred texts, or astronomical charts, were not simply meant to predict future events, but to help individuals and societies navigate the unknown. Prophecies were seen as a means of tapping into the wisdom of the universe, of understanding the deeper currents of time that shape the present moment and would ultimately determine the future. Yet, What makes these ancient prophecies particularly compelling is the way in which they often seem to speak not only to the specific events of their time, but to the broader, universal patterns of history. The rise and fall of civilizations, the cyclical nature of war and peace, the eternal battle between creation and destruction. These are themes that have been explored in countless prophecies, and they resonate with people across cultures and epochs. The ancient prophets, whether they were Mayan astronomers, Egyptian priests, or Chinese sages, recognized that history moves in cycles, and that by understanding the past, one could gain insight into the future. But they also understood that these cycles were not fixed. They were malleable, influenced by human choice and action. This recognition of the role of human agency within the cycles of time is one of the most profound aspects of prophecy. In many ways, the prophetic visions of the ancient world reflect our modern fascination with the future. Just as the ancient prophets sought to understand the forces that would shape the world, so too do we seek to peer into the future, to understand the challenges and transformations that lie ahead. But what makes the ancient prophecies so powerful, even today, is the way in which they speak to the timeless nature of the human experience. The questions that the Mayans, the Egyptians, and the Chinese pondered, questions of fate, time, and the forces that shape human history, are the same questions that we continue to ask. We seek to understand our place in the universe, to find meaning in the chaos of life, and to uncover the deeper forces that govern the flow of time. In this sense, prophecy is not just about predicting the future. It is about understanding the cyclical nature of existence, about recognizing the patterns that define human history, and about using this knowledge to navigate the future. But what happens when we begin to consider the possibility that time, like prophecy, is not just a linear path, but a series of interconnected cycles? What if the ancient prophecies, with their emphasis on cycles, offer us a glimpse into a much deeper truth, that the future is not fixed, but constantly being shaped by the choices we make in the present? This idea invites us to think about prophecy not as a tool for predicting future events, but as a guide for understanding the larger patterns of time. The ancient prophecies, with their cryptic symbols and enigmatic visions, are not just about foretelling what is to come. They are about helping us understand the deep currents of time that flow beneath the surface of human history. In this sense, prophecy becomes a tool for self-awareness, for recognizing the forces that shape our world, and for understanding how we can influence the course of events. Perhaps, in the end, the true power of prophecy lies not in its ability to predict the future, but in its ability to help us navigate the unknown. The ancient prophecies, with their mysterious and often cryptic language, serve as a reminder that we are not passive observers of time, but active participants in its unfolding. The future, like the past, is not set in stone. It is a vast and open field of possibilities, shaped by the choices we make in the present. In this sense, prophecy is not just a tool for understanding the future. It is a way of recognizing the power we hold to shape our own destinies. Time, after all, is not something that happens to us. It is something we create through our thoughts, actions, and decisions. The prophecies of the ancient world remind us of this profound truth, offering us a glimpse into the eternal patterns of existence and urging us to take responsibility for the future we are creating. The allure of prophecy and the search for meaning in time often bring us to the idea of destiny, a concept that has shaped human thought for millennia. Many ancient cultures believe that the world and everything in it unfolded according to divine or cosmic plans, and that the events of human life were somehow predestined, guided by forces beyond human understanding. These forces were often personified as gods or spirits, powerful and enigmatic beings who controlled the fate of nations, families, and individuals. But what happens when we begin to question this idea of destiny? Are we, as humans, truly bound to a fixed, unalterable path, or do we possess the power to shape our own futures? The question of fate and free will has intrigued philosophers, mystics, and scientists alike. Ancient prophecies, with their complex symbolism and cryptic language, offer us a window into this age-old debate. These prophecies often speak of cataclysmic events, transformations, and cycles, suggesting that time itself is malleable and that the future is not as rigid as we might once have believed. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus once said, "You cannot step into the same river twice," a reflection on the idea that time is in constant flux, always changing and never repeating. This is a crucial point when considering the role of prophecy in ancient cultures. Prophecies often came at times of uncertainty, when humanity was struggling to understand the great mysteries of existence and the forces that shaped their lives. Ancient civilizations, in their search for understanding, developed a unique relationship with prophecy, seeing it not as an absolute forecast of the future, but as a guiding principle that helped individuals and societies navigate the complexities of their lives. In ancient Greece, the Oracle of Delphi was perhaps the most famous of these prophetic figures, revered by kings and commoners alike. It was believed that the Pythia, the high priestess who served as the mouthpiece of the god Apollo, could foresee the future and offer guidance on matters of great importance. But the prophecies she delivered were not always clear-cut or direct. Instead, they were often riddled with ambiguity, forcing those who consulted the oracle to interpret them carefully and thoughtfully. This ambiguity added to the mystery of the oracle's power. While she could glimpse the future, the precise meaning of her words was never certain, and the interpretations often varied. One of the most famous examples of the oracle's cryptic guidance is the story of King Croesus of Lydia. Croesus, a wealthy and powerful king, sought the counsel of the oracle before embarking on a war with the Persian Empire. He was told that if he went to war, he would destroy a great empire. Confident in his own power, Croesus took this as a sign that he would defeat Persia and expand his kingdom. However, the prophecy came true in a way he did not expect. It was not Persia that was destroyed, but his own empire. The ambiguity of the prophecy is a striking reminder of how prophecy, while offering insight into the future, is not a straightforward prediction. Instead, it offers a glimpse into the potentialities of the future, a reflection of the ever-changing currents of time. This brings us to an important concept: the idea that prophecy is not necessarily about knowing what will happen, but about understanding the patterns and forces that shape the world. It is about recognizing the interconnectedness of all things, the way in which the events of the past, present, and future are linked together in an intricate web of cause and effect. The notion that prophecy can offer insight into these larger patterns of existence is also evident in the famous prophecies of Nostradamus, a French astrologer and physician from the 16th century. Nostradamus is perhaps best known for his quatrains, which are cryptic, four-line verses that seemingly predict major events in history, from the rise of Napoleon to the events of World War II. His quatrains, like those of the Oracle of Delphi, are filled with ambiguity, their meaning often obscured by complex symbolism and vague language. This has led to endless debate over the years, as people have attempted to decipher Nostradamus' words and determine whether or not they truly predict the future. The key to understanding Nostradamus' prophecies lies not in their specific predictions, but in their broader themes. His quatrains reflect a worldview in which time is constantly unfolding, and the events of history are part of a larger, cyclical process. Just as with the Oracle of Delphi, the purpose of Nostradamus' prophecies was not to provide an exact roadmap of the future, but to help people understand the forces that were at work in their lives, to offer them a lens through which to view the greater currents of time. In both the case of the Oracle of Delphi and the prophecies of Nostradamus, we see a recurring theme: the idea that prophecy is not a fixed prediction, but a tool for navigating the uncertain and ever-changing nature of existence. Prophecies, while often veiled in mystery and ambiguity, offer insights into the larger patterns of life, patterns that are shaped by both human agency and the forces of nature. They offer glimpses into a future that is not set in stone, but one that is fluid and responsive to the choices we make in the present. This fluidity of time is central to understanding the role of prophecy in ancient cultures. It suggests that time is not a linear progression from past to future, but a dynamic and ever-changing force, influenced by the actions of individuals and the larger movements of society. The cyclical nature of time, as seen in the Mayan calendar and the myths of other ancient civilizations, further emphasizes the idea that prophecy is not about predicting a fixed outcome, but about understanding the cycles and patterns that govern existence. The end of one cycle, as the Mayans believed, is simply the beginning of another. Each new cycle brings with it the potential for transformation, renewal, and growth. In this context, prophecy is not a tool for foretelling disaster or doom, but for recognizing the opportunities for change and evolution that lie within the cycles of time. The ancient Egyptians, with their belief in the eternal nature of time and the cosmic order, viewed prophecy in a similar light. Their concept of ma'at, the divine principle of balance and order, reflected the belief that the world was constantly in a state of flux, with forces of creation and destruction constantly at play. Prophecies, then, were not merely glimpses into future events, but reflections of the eternal struggle between order and chaos, creation and destruction. This view of prophecy, as a tool for understanding the larger patterns of existence, encourages us to reconsider our own relationship with time and destiny. If time is not a straight line, but a cyclical process, then the future is not predetermined, but shaped by the choices we make in the present. The events of our lives, both personal and collective, are not isolated incidents, but part of a larger, unfolding story, one that is constantly in motion, shaped by both the individual and the collective will. This understanding of prophecy offers us a profound insight into the nature of free will and fate. While the forces of time and destiny may exert their influence over our lives, we are not powerless in the face of them. We have the ability to shape our own futures, to navigate the currents of time with awareness and understanding, and to create the world we want to live in. In this way, prophecy becomes not just a tool for foreseeing the future, but a guide for living in harmony with the larger patterns of existence. It invites us to recognize that time is not something we can control, but something we can work with. It teaches us that the future is not a destination to be reached, but a journey to be navigated, one step at a time. Prophecies, in all their mystery and ambiguity, remind us that the future is not fixed, but full of possibilities that we can shape through our choices and actions. The true power of prophecy, then, lies not in its ability to predict the future, but in its ability to guide us through the uncertain and ever-changing landscape of time. It is a reminder that we are not merely subject to the forces of fate, but active participants in the unfolding of our own stories. Through prophecy, we come to understand that time is both a gift and a challenge, an opportunity to shape the world and to transcend the limitations of the present moment. As we continue our exploration of ancient prophecies, there is a subtle yet profound shift that occurs as we delve deeper into the intersection of fate and free will. The ancient texts, whether they are the cryptic quatrains of Nostradamus or the sacred oracles of the ancient world, often seem to walk a fine line between offering glimpses of inevitable future events and allowing for human agency to shape outcomes. This tension between destiny and choice is perhaps one of the most enduring themes found in the study of prophecy. While some may view prophecy as a predestined roadmap of human history, others might see it as a tool that holds up a mirror to the present, revealing the potential outcomes based on the actions we take today. And so, it raises the question, if prophecy is not about predicting the future with certainty, what then is its purpose? Is it simply a divine forecast of the inevitable? Or is it a message that empowers us to change course, to break free from the cycles of repetition, and to transcend the limitations of time? The concept of prophecy as a reflection of the potential rather than the fixed future finds support in various cultural and religious traditions. For instance, in the Jewish tradition, prophecy is often understood as a warning or guidance, not a definitive declaration of what will come. The prophet is not someone who speaks of future set in stone, but a person who offers insight into the consequences of actions taken in the present moment. One of the clearest examples of this is the story of the prophet Jonah, who was sent to the city of Nineveh with a dire prophecy of its destruction. However, Jonah's warning was not a decree of fate. The people of Nineveh, upon hearing the prophecy, repented, and the city was spared. This narrative suggests that prophecy can be understood as a tool for reflection and change, something that can encourage humanity to make better choices, thereby altering the course of events. This idea that prophecy serves as a catalyst for change rather than a fixed prediction of the future is echoed in many other cultures and belief systems. The ancient Greeks, for example, viewed prophecies delivered by the Oracle of Delphi as something that could be interpreted in many ways. The famous myth of Oedipus, for instance, tells of a prophecy that foretold Oedipus would kill his father and marry his mother. The prophecy, however, was not an inescapable fate. Oedipus and his parents made choices that ultimately led to the fulfillment of the prophecy, yet it was their actions, driven by free will, that brought the tragic outcome to fruition. This suggests that prophecies, while revealing potential outcomes, are often shaped by the decisions and actions of those involved. The same can be said of many other prophetic traditions, where the fulfillment of a prophecy is less about an unavoidable destiny and more about how the individuals involved respond to the warning or guidance presented. Nostradamus, whose prophecies continue to captivate and mystify audiences today, presents an interesting case study in this context. His quatrains are often cited as predictions of global events, such as the rise of Hitler, the French Revolution, and even the September 11th attacks. Yet, when we examine his work more closely, we realize that Nostradamus did not provide definitive timelines or precise details. His quatrains are filled with ambiguity, and their meaning is often open to interpretation. This ambiguity, far from being a flaw, is perhaps one of the reasons why his prophecies have remained relevant for so long. The lack of specificity allows for a wide range of interpretations, and it invites people to read the quatrains in a way that resonates with their own experiences and worldview. Nostradamus did not predict the future with certainty, but rather offered a window into the potentialities of the future, allowing for human interpretation and involvement in shaping that future. This, in itself, suggests that prophecy is not a deterministic force, but rather a guide that encourages us to take responsibility for the path we are on. The ancient Mayans, whose calendar gained widespread attention in 2012, held a similar belief in the cyclical nature of time. Their understanding of time was not linear but circular, and their calendar was based on long cycles that marked both the beginning and the end of eras. However, as the Mayan calendar came to an end on December 21st, 2012, many believe that it signified an apocalyptic event, the end of the world. This misinterpretation overlooks the true nature of the Mayan view of time. For the Mayans, the end of one cycle was simply the beginning of another. Their understanding of prophecy was not about predicting the end of the world, but about understanding the natural rhythms of the cosmos and aligning human actions with those rhythms. Prophecy, in the Mayan worldview, was not about knowing an inevitable future, but about preparing for the changes that each new cycle would bring. The Mayans believed that with each new cycle came an opportunity for renewal, transformation, and growth, and it was up to humanity to recognize these opportunities and embrace them. Similarly, the Egyptians, with their profound understanding of the cosmos, saw prophecy as a way to understand the larger patterns of existence. In the Egyptian worldview, time was cyclical, and the gods themselves were bound to the eternal cycles of life, death, and rebirth. The Egyptians believed that the pharaohs, as divine rulers, were responsible for maintaining harmony within these cycles, ensuring that order prevailed over chaos. The prophecies in Egyptian texts often served as a means of reaffirming the divine order of the universe, reminding both the rulers and the people of their roles in maintaining this balance. However, these prophecies were not meant to foretell a fixed future, but were designed to encourage the rulers to align their actions with divine will, to recognize the importance of their role in the eternal cycle of time. What emerges from this exploration of ancient prophecies is a deeper understanding of the relationship between time, destiny, and human agency. Prophecy, in its most profound sense, is not about forecasting a fixed future. It is about revealing the larger patterns that govern the flow of time, the cycles of history, and the interconnectedness of all things. Prophecy invites us to recognize the potential consequences of our actions, to see the larger forces at play, and to understand that the future is shaped not only by the choices of individuals, but by the collective will of humanity. In this sense, prophecy acts as a guide, offering wisdom and insight into the future, but leaving room for human agency and choice. This understanding of prophecy as a reflection of potential outcomes rather than an inevitable fate brings us to a new way of thinking about time and its relationship to our lives. If time is cyclical, then the events of our past are not lost, but continue to echo in the present and future. Our choices, actions, and decisions are not isolated moments, but part of a larger, ongoing process, a process that is influenced by the rhythms of time and the forces of the cosmos. Prophecy, in this sense, serves as a reminder that time is not something we're subject to, but something we can engage with and navigate. It offers us the opportunity to align our actions with a natural flow of the universe, to recognize the patterns of history, and to use this awareness to shape our own destinies. As we consider the role of prophecy in ancient cultures and in our own lives, we must recognize that the future is not set in stone. It is not a fixed, predetermined path, but a dynamic and ever-changing field of possibilities. Prophecies are not meant to limit us, but to empower us to make better choices, to understand the forces that shape our world, and to take responsibility for the path we are on. They invite us to see beyond the surface of events and to recognize the deeper patterns that connect all things. In this way, prophecy is not just a tool for understanding the future. It is a guide for living more fully in the present, for recognizing the opportunities for transformation and renewal that lie within each moment. Time, in this view, is not a linear progression from past to future, but a vast, cyclical flow, a dynamic force that we can engage with and shape through our choices and actions. The future, then, is not something to fear or predict, but something to create through our awareness, our intentions, and our will. Throughout history, humanity has always looked to the skies, the stars, and the heavens, believing that these celestial bodies held the key to understanding time, fate, and the future. Ancient civilizations, with their unparalleled ability to observe and interpret the natural world, often saw the stars as more than just distant objects in the night sky. To them, the stars were the markers of time, the messengers of the gods, and the silent witnesses to the unfolding of history. The study of astrology and celestial movements was a fundamental aspect of ancient prophecy, as people sought to align their lives with the rhythms of the cosmos. The concept of a cosmic order, where the movements of the stars and planets were believed to influence human affairs, is an idea that has persisted across cultures and ages. This belief that the universe is interconnected, with everything from the tiniest grains of sand to the vast expanse of the stars being bound by invisible threads, is deeply rooted in human consciousness. And within this interconnectedness lies the idea that time itself is not random, but is instead governed by cosmic forces. In ancient Mesopotamia, the Sumerians, Babylonians, and Assyrians practiced some of the earliest forms of astrology, seeking to understand how the movements of the planets and stars influenced the events of their world. The Babylonians, for instance, created some of the most sophisticated astrological charts ever devised, mapping the stars and planets with astonishing precision. Their belief was that the gods communicated through the stars, and that by studying the heavens, they could gain insight into future events. This belief was not just about understanding the future. It was about establishing a connection between humanity and the divine, with the stars serving as a divine code that needed to be deciphered. The Babylonians used their astrological charts to predict everything from the rise and fall of kings to the outcomes of wars. They believed that every significant event in the world had a cosmic counterpart, and that by aligning their actions with the movements of the stars, they could influence the course of history. Similarly, the ancient Egyptians also believed that the stars had a profound influence on the flow of time and the fate of humanity. Their entire calendar was based on the heliacal rising of the star Sirius, which marked the start of the annual flooding of the Nile River. This event was seen as a divine occurrence, a cosmic sign that the gods were blessing the land with fertility and abundance. The Egyptians' knowledge of astronomy and their ability to chart the movements of the stars allowed them to predict the flooding of the Nile with remarkable accuracy. To the Egyptians, the rising of Sirius was not just an astronomical event. It was a symbol of the divine order, a reminder that the cosmos operated according to a greater plan. The connection between the stars and the natural world was not merely a scientific observation. It was a spiritual one, a recognition that the heavens and the earth were inextricably linked. In this way, the stars were seen as a reflection of the divine will, and by understanding their movements, The Egyptians believed they could gain insight into the workings of the universe. The Greeks, too, were deeply fascinated by the stars and their relationship to prophecy. Greek mythology is filled with stories of gods and heroes whose destinies were shaped by the stars and the heavens. The most famous of these stories is perhaps that of the hero Perseus, whose fate was foretold by the Oracle of Delphi. Perseus, warned that he would one day kill his grandfather, the king, was cast away by his mother, Danae, in a chest, only to be rescued by the gods. Throughout the story, the intervention of the gods and the guidance of the stars play a crucial role in determining the fate of the hero. In this way, the Greeks, like the Babylonians and the Egyptians, believed that the stars were not only markers of time, but also guides to understanding the future. Their belief in the influence of the heavens on human affairs was so strong that they even developed the science of astrology, which sought to understand how the positions of the planets and stars at the moment of one's birth could shape their personality, destiny, and life's path. As we move further into history, the role of astrology and celestial prophecy remains a constant thread. In medieval Europe, astrology was deeply intertwined with both religion and science. The Church, despite its initial opposition to astrology, eventually began to incorporate astrological ideas into its worldview, especially in the realm of healing and the prediction of events. The famous astrologer and physician Paracelsus, for example, used astrological charts to diagnose and treat illnesses, believing that the positions of the stars could influence a person's health. This belief in the connection between the stars and earthly events was not limited to personal matters, but extended to the realm of politics and war. Kings and rulers often consulted astrologers before making important decisions, such as going to war or entering into treaties, believing that the stars held the key to success or failure. In fact, some of the most important historical events, including battles and political decisions, were guided by astrological predictions. This connection between the stars and human affairs continued into the Renaissance, where the study of astrology flourished alongside advancements in science and philosophy. Many of the greatest thinkers of the time, including Johannes Kepler and Galileo Galilei, were also deeply interested in astrology, and they believed that the study of the heavens could reveal important truths about both the universe and the human soul.